Hi, this is J.P. Rader, and I am participating in a collaborative project with Helen Rader in EDD 801, Servant Leadership. And this project will center on our vision for what we see as the school, the ideal school of the future.
Mr. Rader, what would be the mission statement for your ideal school of the future?
Well, I think Dr. Rocky Wallace, in his recent book, Servant Leadership, actually sort of outlined what we think would be the sort of ideal school for the future, and its mission statement. It centers around sort of creative, innovative communities in which we're thinking outside of the boundaries of sort of the rigid structures that we've seen in schools for decades, for centuries, and trying to create learning communities in which teachers can flourish, students can flourish, they can focus on learning and being creative in that atmosphere and fostering that atmosphere in a positive environment.
What will be the kind of leadership that you will have at your school?
Well, it's going to center on servant leadership, and servant leadership was really established in 1970. Greenleaf created a definition that most of the leadership community has sort of embraced, and this definition focused on looking at those two words, servant leader, and Greenleaf established that the first thing that needed to be done was to think in terms of a servant, not in terms of a leader. The leader would come, those qualities would come after, but to really create a leadership structure, a leadership model in which the leader would be willing to do virtually anything that was necessary as a servant for the school, for both all of the stakeholders, the teachers, the students, everyone that was involved in those schools would fully understand that the administration was willing to do anything that was necessary to foster learning and growth and innovation and critical thinking. All these things will be byproducts of this servant leader model.
Your servant leader.
Well, I think Maxwell kind of set the tone, really, in some of his literature, when he said really that we need to be visionary, we need to inspire, we need to move our organization forward. We need to provide a support system for growth within that organization. But during our years that we spent in Korea, we actually had an administrator that gave us some more qualities that we saw that I think would be adapt well to our perfect school of the future. Some of these qualities included being willing to listen and really understand what the teacher and the student, what they were going through. So he was very interested, very approachable, and he was very willing to empower us to be creative in the classroom. I remember many times where he might drop in and see what you were doing, and whenever he did that, it was always a situation where he would come back to you and say, "Hey, I really liked what you were doing. Well done. Can you think of different ways that you could approach this?" So I think he gave a real model for servant leadership that we would be looking for. Really, the most important thing in terms of servant leadership, some of those qualities, would have to center on the relational piece. And our principal in Korea and headmaster was very good at this. But really, that kind of segues into emotional intelligence. With Salovey and Mayer really wrote about this, in which the leader of our school would be someone that would really be able to discern emotions, discern their own emotions, see what the emotions of others, their feelings, being able to discern what was happening in the situation and being able to react to that situation and handle that situation in a way that would take into account all of the points of view. And so this would be a very, very important piece in our qualities of the leader.
How important is it to hire the right people?
Well, I think this is our second major point, is really getting the right, surrounding yourself with the right people. Collins wrote about this in which he talked about getting the right people on the bus, but also placing them in the right seats. So you really have to not only surround yourself with very talented people, but also put them in the right situation to flourish. And I think that's one of the things that, as a leader of this future school, that it would be imperative that we try to get quality people, talented people, innovative people, and then set them free to do the work that's necessary in order to see learning in the classrooms. If it's not about learning, then there's no point in bringing talented people in. But we also can't be afraid of surrounding ourselves with talent. That's one of the things that I've learned as a women's volleyball coach at Asbury University, that one of the key elements to success is surrounding myself with talent and not being afraid to do that. Surrounding myself both with players but also coaches. I think as an administrator the same thing is true. That you have to bring in people that can make positive, substantial change and be critical thinkers and really think through how your school can grow. In hiring the right people for your school and getting the right people on the bus, it is imperative that they buy into the mission of the school and to really the direction that the school is going. And so, as a leader, I'm looking for people that are like-minded in understanding the mission and buying into that mission and flourishing through that mission.
How will you empower your teachers and team leaders?
Well, I think one of the things that's going to be crucial for the administrator of this future school is to be able to empower the teachers by building trust, by allowing them a voice in the decision-making process, so that it's not just a one-way street. It's not top-down decision-making, but it's a collaboration, really, in some ways. And so it's going to be important that the teachers have that voice. I think that's one of the things that will really eliminate burnout in the long run, to allow them to have a voice in the process, but also to provide them with professional development, retreats, a chance to grow professionally. I think is a huge part of that. I think that's one of the things that we were able to do in our former school in Korea. They provided a very adequate professional development budget, which allowed us to go and grow as professionals, as teachers. So I think that's one of the key steps, is making sure that relationship piece is strong between the administrator and the teacher, and to be able to create learning communities through that are innovative, that can push them, and so that, as the Pritchard Committee said, so that the teacher training is very directed, so that you're not just going through professional development that's all over the board, but it has a real tight focus, and so that and it is aligned well with the goals and the standards that are established.
How will you focus and invest in your students, your customers?
Well, in many ways, this is the core of our future school, because without this major investment in the students, it's going to be absolutely impossible for our school to flourish. Because as Stu Silberman, the former superintendent of Fayette County Schools, the tagline he created said, "It's all about kids." And I love that tagline because I think he hit it right on the head. If your focus for the entire school is not really about the kids, then we have a problem. If it's about the teachers, if it's about the parents, as Michelle Rhee said in Waiting for Superman, if it starts being about the parents, we have a problem. It needs to focus back on the students. How can this be done? Well, again, the relationship piece between teachers and students is critical. We all know the research focuses on the quality teacher is going to make the biggest difference in a student's lives. And so we want to make sure that students walk into our future school and they're going to be met by quality teachers. If that means that we're going to have to give them professional development again that's very directed and focused, then that's what we're going to need to do. We need to bring in the community. We need to create alliances with the community so that they become part of the stakeholder group. We need to have an alliance with the colleges and universities as well so that we can develop relationships there that can create opportunities for students, and we can foster those dreams of the students for higher education. We need to have opportunities for kids to have multiple extracurricular options. We need to provide those options as much as possible. It needs to be an integral part of what we're doing in our school. We need to have a mentoring program between the teachers and the kids, as well as mentoring that's taking place with the administration and the teachers, and all the way up. And at all levels, we need to really develop that program. So it really centers on the fostering of these relationships, but also it has to have an unremitting, a high standard that's at the base of everything, so that the kids understand that they need to achieve, that that's their focus, that's their goal.
How will you develop a clear vision and mission for your school?
The vision statement is critical for our school of the future. We have to have a vision for where we want to take the school. And once that vision is established, then it then will flourish into, we can articulate that vision into a mission statement and then a strategic plan. Before that can happen, though, we've got to do a SWOT analysis of our situation. And once we see the strengths and weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats, once we see all of those things and we see the data that comes from that information, then we can develop our strategic plan, which will have different levels, the short-term, the mid-range, and then the long-term strategic plan for our schools. So I think without that vision, though, without casting that vision to see where you want to go, for instance, as an example, we were talking about high standards for our school. That's what we're looking for as a part of our vision. Do we want a strong extracurricular program to be integral to what we're doing? Do we want to develop that mentoring program? Do we want to make sure that the relationship between teachers and students is strong? Do we want to bring in very strong teachers who are going to be able to get on that bus, as we talked about before? So I think that's going to be important. It's going to be important that as an administrator that I would be able to articulate that vision and that plan so that everyone could embrace the vision. Once you have people that are willing to embrace that vision, then you can move your school forward.
How will you develop a strategic plan for your school?
Well, as we talked about this strategic plan, we're really, as Covey said, we're really looking at the end first and going backwards. We know the direction we want the school to go, and we're focusing on that direction with our strategic plan and being able to implement the steps to getting there. The steps for this strategic plan have to center on several fundamental things. We've talked about some of these things already. Getting very high academic standards for our students, setting the bar high, making sure that they understand where they want to go in their academic career. We want to focus on learning in the classroom. We want to enable and empower the teachers to be able to teach innovatively and focus on critical thinking in their classes. And whatever that's going to mean as far as resources, as far as anything that we can give them as an administration. It's going to be critical that we put in place that relationship piece that we talked about earlier as well, between the teacher and the student, between the administration and the teacher as well. Another aspect of this with the strategic plan is to make sure that that every part of this plan is data driven. So that's going to come out of the SWOT survey that we would use. It would also come out of a climate survey using 40 developmental assets, for instance, as an option. This data would then drive the direction that our strategic plan would go.